you know that they're good for about 5 minutes of massage and then they get bored, so yes.
Hey!
Yeah.
You're right.
I have the wonderful honor of evaluating Emily, not Alice, Emily's table topic session. So active listening, the goal for this is that basically you're supposed to listen to the response and then make a comment or that shows that you are listening during that. Now, Emily, you made it really hard for yourself. You didn't ask questions that you had very difficult to answer questions, which didn't actually provide a lot of information for you to then listen and reflect on. You did a great job though. You made some humorous comments after every speech, so that part, you really did a good job. You presented very well, you're very confident on stage. Now you'll find out that Canadians are not so nice. Because your questions were the kind of questions that maybe we can Google, and they're interesting for about 3 seconds, right? So do you use a fork or a hand? Oh, I use my hands. I use my fork. And then the challenge as an experienced speaker is then to allow to, I guess, stretch that out for a minute and a half. But does the audience really care about this answer is the other thing to think about. When the question comes, I'm like, I don't really care about the answer. to a few of these questions, right? There are other questions. I would suggest, in this case, you could have a similar question, but change it slightly. So for example, the question about, what happened is your question got hijacked because it was not necessarily a question that Eric wanted to answer. So he just, hijacked the entire section and answered something different, right? So that's a sign that maybe it was the wrong question.
No, I would have said that anyways, whatever.
Whatever the show's gonna be. Then our champion tabletop speaker got stumped as well. So I mean, in a way, you made it was great because you made it challenging, and these people, very experienced tabletop speakers didn't do a great job answering it, right? So I agree with that. Yeah, so in that sense, it was good, but I think that it could have been a much more interesting session if you changed the question slightly. So for example, the animal question could have been, if your pet could talk to you, what would your pet say, right? So then it's a bit more of a easier, to answer question or something. It's hard to think of an animal that would be charming, right?
Change the answer.
Another way you could change it. So the question about the deserted island, that's a question that we see in a lot of books that they always ask this question, but you can make it a bit more of a story, right? So you were on this boat, and how did you get on this desert island? Because really, this is a question that. It's lovely, but it's not really going to happen to many people. So maybe create a scenario or a story. The other thing you could do if you wanted to ask simple questions like, when you eat pizza, do you eat it with hands or your fork? You could then say, but tell it to us in a baby voice, right? You can add a second challenge to those questions so that you're asking the question, but then you're also making it a little more interesting, right? So you have to think about the audience as well. So think about the challenge for the speaker, but also the audience is going to join. We had a lot of hecklers as well. I think you did very well with the hecklers. There was a lot of heckling at the front row during your session. So that's one thing that in TGIF you do have to deal with, and especially as a non-native speaker to calm these guys down. There's maybe give ideas like you can come right in and say next question.
Go for it.
Yeah. Or make a really fast movement because you stayed over to the side, so you kind of gave them the power. So you got to move back in and take back your power sometimes. Right?
Will Smith.
Don't Will Smith.
Right? Yeah. Or that. Just.
No Will Smithing over here.
There's no timing. I was like, what's going on? I have so much time that there's.
You got 5 minutes.
Oh, I have 5 minutes?
No.
5
more minutes.